Blanca sat alone at her dining table in her best red dress, the one she saved for special occasions. Candles were lit. Flowers were arranged perfectly. It was her 8th wedding anniversary, and she had spent all day preparing David's favorite meal. But when her husband walked through the door, he wasn't alone. His mother was behind him, wearing that cold smile Blanca had learned to fear. Behind them both was a man in a gray suit carrying a briefcase. "Sit down, Blanca," David said, his voice flat and emotionless. "We need to talk." Her heart started racing. This didn't feel right. David pulled out a chair, but didn't sit close to her. His mother stood by the wall with her arms crossed. The man in the suit opened his briefcase and pulled out papers. "I want a divorce," David said, looking at her like she was a stranger. 8 years, Blanca. 8 years, and you couldn't give me a child. I need a real wife. Someone who can give me a family." His mother laughed, actually laughed. "You should have known my son wouldn't waste his life with a defective woman." The lawyer pushed papers across the table. "Mr. Patterson is offering you $50,000. You have 1 month to move out. Sign here." Blanca's hands shook as she picked up the pen. 8 years of cooking his meals, supporting his business, enduring his family's cruelty. 8 years of her life, reduced to a signature on a divorce paper. She signed because she had no fight left in her. That night, she packed one suitcase and walked out into the freezing Chicago streets. Everything she had built was gone. But what happened next would change her life forever. What would you do if the person you gave everything to threw you away like you meant nothing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow, we have another story dropping that you absolutely don't want to miss. Your support helps us bring you more powerful stories like this one. And to all our amazing viewers from the United States, Australia, Mexico, France, United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, Japan, Jamaica, and everywhere else around the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and engaging with our content. You are the reason we keep telling these stories. We appreciate every single one of you. Now, let's see what happened to Blanca after the worst night of her life. The next morning, Blanca woke up in a cheap hotel room near downtown Chicago. Her eyes were swollen from crying all night. She looked at her phone and saw 17 messages from David's lawyer, all about paperwork and deadlines and moving schedules. She turned off her phone and left it on the bed. She needed air. She needed to think. She needed to figure out what to do with the rest of her life. Blanca walked for hours through the city streets. February in Chicago was brutal. The wind cut through her coat like knives, but she barely felt it. The pain inside her was much worse than any cold. She passed families laughing together, couples holding hands, and each one felt like a reminder of what she had lost. Not just David, but the dream of what she thought her life would be. By noon, she realized she hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Her stomach was empty, but she had no appetite. Still, she knew she needed food. She found herself in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. The buildings were older here, with Korean writing on many of the shop signs. The smell of cooking food drifted from a small restaurant called Harmony House. Something about that name called to her. Harmony. Peace. Things she desperately needed. The restaurant was small and warm inside. Only a few tables were filled with customers eating lunch. An elderly Korean woman greeted her with a smile and seated her by the window. Blanca ordered soup without really looking at the menu. When it arrived, steaming hot with vegetables and noodles, she took one bite and started crying again. She couldn't help it. The warmth, the kindness of the simple meal. It broke something inside her that she had been holding together. "Excuse me, are you okay?" Blanca looked up to see a man standing beside her table. He was Korean, probably in his mid-30s, and tall. He wore an expensive black suit that fit him perfectly, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly rent. His hair was styled back from his face, and when she met his eyes, she saw something unexpected. Kindness. Real concern. "I'm fine," Blanca said automatically, wiping her tears with a napkin. "Just having a really bad day." "May I sit?" the man asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. Blanca should have said no. She didn't know this man. But she was so tired of being alone, so exhausted from carrying all this pain by herself, that she just nodded. He sat down with the grace of someone who was used to being in control. "My name is Jin-Soo Park. My family owns this restaurant. When someone cries while eating our food, I take it personally." He said it with a small smile that told her he was trying to make her feel comfortable. The food is wonderful, Blanca said quickly. That's not why I'm crying. I didn't think so, Jinsu said. He signaled to the elderly woman, who brought tea for both of them. You look like someone carrying a heavy weight. Sometimes it helps to share that weight with a stranger. We have no history, no judgment. Just two people having tea. Maybe it was his gentle voice. Maybe it was because she had no one else to talk to. Maybe it was because she had reached the point where she had nothing left to lose. Whatever the reason, Blanca found herself talking. She told him everything. About the 8 years with David. About trying and failing to have children. About the doctors and the tests and the disappointment. About David's mother and her cruel words. About last night, the divorce papers, being thrown out of her own home with just $50,000 and 1 month to disappear. Jinsu listened without interrupting. His expression grew darker as she spoke, especially when she mentioned David's mother calling her defective. When Blanca finished, she felt empty. She had just told her deepest shame to a complete stranger. This David, Jinsu said finally, his voice calm but firm, he is a fool. And his family is cruel. He leaned forward slightly. In my culture, we believe that a person's worth comes from their character, their loyalty, their heart. You spent 8 years being faithful to a man who didn't deserve you. You supported him, loved him, tried everything to make him happy. That makes you valuable. That makes you strong. The fact that you cannot have biological children doesn't change any of that. Blanca felt fresh tears coming. But these were different. These weren't tears of shame or pain. These were tears of relief. Someone finally saw her as a person, not as a broken baby-making machine. Where are you staying? Jinsu asked. A hotel downtown. I need to find an apartment soon. David only gave me 1 month. Jinsu was quiet for a moment, studying her face. I own several buildings in Chicago. One of my apartments in Lincoln Park is empty right now. Move in there. No rent for 6 months. It will give you time to figure out your next steps, get back on your feet. I can't accept that, Blanca said immediately. I don't even know you. Why would you do that for me? Because someone should, Jinsu said simply. Because you deserve kindness after all that cruelty. Because I understand what it's like to be judged for things you cannot control. His eyes held a sadness that told her he had his own story, his own pain. I don't need charity, Blanca said, her pride fighting against her desperate situation. It's not charity, Jinsu said gently. Think of it as one human being helping another human being. You've been knocked down. I'm offering you a hand to help you stand back up. What you do after that is completely up to you. But right now, you need a safe place to stay and time to heal. Let me give you that. Blanca looked into his eyes and saw no hidden agenda, no expectations, just genuine kindness from a stranger who owed her nothing. Okay, she whispered. Thank you, but I will pay you back somehow. I promise. We'll worry about that later, Jinsu said. He pulled out a business card and wrote an address on the back. This is the apartment. I'll meet you there tomorrow at noon with the keys. For now, finish your soup. And Blanca. He waited until she looked at him. Your life isn't over. It's just beginning a new chapter. The next day at exactly noon, Jinsu was waiting outside a beautiful building in Lincoln Park. He was dressed more casually today, in dark jeans and a leather jacket, but he still had that same commanding presence. When he saw Blanca getting out of her taxi with her single suitcase, he walked over and took it from her hands. Let me help you with that, he said. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. Jinsu unlocked the door and stepped aside to let Blanca enter first. She walked in and stopped, her hand going to her mouth. The apartment was beautiful. Hardwood floors gleamed in the afternoon sunlight that poured through large windows. The furniture was simple but comfortable looking. The kitchen was small but had everything she would need. Through an open door, she could see a bedroom with a real bed, not the saggy hotel mattress she had been sleeping on. This is too much, Blanca said, turning to face Jinsu. It's exactly what you need, he corrected, setting her suitcase down. He walked to the windows and pointed outside. The grocery store is 2 blocks that way. The train station is 3 blocks in the other direction if you need to go anywhere in the city. The neighborhood is safe. I own this whole building, so if anything breaks or you need anything, just call me. He handed her a set of keys and his business card. My personal number is on there. Blanca took the keys with shaking hands. Jinsu, I don't know what to say. Say you'll rest. Say you'll take time to figure out who Blanca is when she's not trying to please someone else. He smiled at her. And when you're ready, come back to Harmony House. My mother, the woman who served you yesterday, she's been looking for help at the restaurant. No pressure. Just if you need something to do." After Jinsu left, Blanca walked through the apartment touching everything like she was in a dream. She had her own space, her own home. No one to criticize her cooking or tell her she wasn't good enough. For the first time in 8 years, she felt like she could breathe. The first week, Blanca mostly slept. 8 years of stress and sadness had exhausted her more than she realized. She would wake up without an alarm, make simple meals, and sit by the window watching the tree-lined street below. It was quiet, peaceful. The second week, she started going for walks. She discovered a path along Lake Michigan and would spend hours watching the water. Even though it was still cold, something about the lake made her feel calm. She started thinking about her life before David. She had been a teacher once. She had loved working with children, seeing their faces light up when they learned something new. She had given that up when David said his wife didn't need to work. She had been so stupid. By the third week, Blanca started visiting Harmony House regularly. Mrs. Park, Jinsu's mother, was a warm woman in her 60s with kind eyes and quick hands. She spoke English with a heavy accent, but was easy to understand. She would make Blanca sit at the counter and talk while she prepared food. "My son tells me you were a teacher," Mrs. Park said one afternoon, chopping vegetables with the speed of someone who had done it 1,000 times. "Yes, elementary school. 3rd grade. I loved it. Why did you stop?" "My husband wanted me to focus on starting a family." Blanca's voice was quiet. Mrs. Park stopped chopping and looked at her directly. "A man who makes you give up what you love is not a good man. A good man wants you to be happy, to use your gifts. You should go back to teaching." "It's been 8 years. I don't even know if I could anymore." "Of course you could," Mrs. Park said firmly. "You're only 32, Blanca. You have so much life ahead of you. Don't waste it believing the lies that cruel people told you." That conversation planted a seed in Blanca's mind. That evening, she opened her laptop and started researching what she would need to do to return to teaching. Her certification had expired, but she could renew it. She would need to take some courses, pass some tests. It was possible. It would take time and money, but it was possible. Jinsu started visiting the apartment once or twice a week. He always had some reason. He needed to check the heater. He wanted to make sure the water pressure was okay. He had extra food from the restaurant that would go to waste if she didn't take it. Blanca knew these were excuses, but she didn't mind. She found herself looking forward to his visits. They would sit in her small living room drinking tea and talking. Jinsu told her about growing up in Chicago as the son of Korean immigrants, about learning to move between 2 cultures, never quite fitting perfectly in either one, about taking over his father's business and the weight of responsibility that came with it. Blanca told him about her parents and their restaurant on the South Side, about growing up watching them work 16-hour days to give her opportunities they never had, about the guilt she felt for throwing away her teaching career to marry a man who never really loved her. "You didn't throw it away," Jinsu said. "You made a choice based on what you knew at the time. Now you know differently. Now you can make different choices. Is it really that simple?" Blanca asked. "Yes," Jinsu said. "It really is. We can't change our past, but we can decide what we do next. That's the power we always have, even when it feels like we have nothing." One evening, about 6 weeks after moving into the apartment, Blanca made dinner for Jinsu as a thank you. She cooked her mother's recipe for chicken in mole sauce, rice, and homemade tortillas. Jinsu arrived right on time, bringing flowers and a bottle of wine. "You didn't have to bring anything," Blanca said, taking the flowers. "My mother would hit me with a wooden spoon if I showed up to dinner empty-handed," Jinsu said with a smile. They ate and talked, and for the first time since her divorce, Blanca laughed. Really laughed. Jinsu told her stories about disasters at the restaurant, about customers who tried to order items that didn't exist, about his mother accidentally ordering 300 pounds of rice instead of 30. "She still blames me for that," Jinsu said. "Says I distracted her while she was on the phone." "Did you?" Blanca asked. "Absolutely. I was 7 years old and showing her a drawing I made at school. Apparently, that was very distracting." As Jinsu helped her clean up after dinner, Blanca realized something. She was happy. Not pretend happy, not going through the motions happy. Actually, genuinely happy. And it had been so long since she felt this way that she had almost forgotten what it was like 2 months after moving into the apartment, Blanca had settled into a routine. She was taking online courses to renew her teaching certification. She helped Mrs. Park at the restaurant 3 days a week. She had even reconnected with her parents, finally visiting their restaurant and telling them everything that had happened. They had cried with her, held her, and told her they were proud of how strong she was being. Jin-Soo's visits had become more frequent. He would stop by after work, still in his expensive suits, and they would have tea or dinner together. Blanca noticed things about him. How he always asked about her day before talking about his own. How he remembered small details she mentioned, like her favorite flower or the type of music she liked. How he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't paying attention. One evening in late April, they were sitting in her living room after dinner. Spring had finally arrived in Chicago, and through the open window, they could hear birds singing in the trees outside. Jin-Soo seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. He kept running his hand through his hair, a gesture Blanca had learned meant he was thinking hard about something. "Blanca, I need to tell you something about myself," he said finally. "About my business." "Okay," Blanca said, setting down her teacup. "You know I own this building and the restaurant. But that's not all my family does." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We run what you might call a protection network for the Korean community in Chicago. We help Korean immigrants who can't go to the police. We settle disputes between business owners. We provide security for people who need it." "That sounds helpful," Blanca said, not sure where this was going. "It is helpful, but it operates in what you might call a gray area. Not always completely legal. Some people call us the Korean Mafia, though we don't use that word ourselves." He looked at her directly. "I'm telling you this because I care about you, and you deserve to know the truth about who I am." Blanca was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "Have you ever hurt innocent people?" "Never," Jin-Soo said firmly. "That's my line. We protect people who need protection. We stand up to bullies and criminals who prey on immigrants who don't speak English well or don't understand the American system. We don't deal in drugs. We don't hurt people who don't deserve it. But yes, sometimes we use methods that aren't exactly legal." "Why are you telling me this?" Blanca asked. Jin-Soo stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. "Because I need to be honest with you. Because over these past 2 months, I've developed feelings for you. Strong feelings. And I can't pursue those feelings while hiding who I really am." Blanca's heart started racing. She stood up and walked over to him. "What kind of feelings?" He turned to face her, and she could see vulnerability in his eyes that she had never seen before. "I think about you constantly. When I wake up, when I go to work, when I'm handling business. You're always on my mind. Your strength, your kindness, the way you're rebuilding your life from nothing. You're remarkable, Blanca." "Jin-Soo, I'm still technically married. The divorce won't be final for a few more months," Blanca said, her voice shaking. "And I'm broken. I can't give you children. I can't give you what most men want." Jin-Soo reached out and gently took her hand. "Let me tell you something I've never told anyone outside my family. My father had 5 children with my mother. I'm the only one who survived past childhood. The others died from a genetic illness. The doctors tested me when I was 25. I carry the same genes. If I have biological children, there's a very high chance they would have the same illness, the same short, painful lives my brothers and sisters had." Blanca's eyes filled with tears. "Jin-Soo, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I made peace with it years ago. I decided that if I ever wanted to be a father, I would adopt. There are so many children in this world who need homes, who need love. Why does it matter if they share my blood?" He squeezed her hand gently. "So you see, we're the same, you and I. Society calls us defective because we can't produce biological children. But we're not defective. We're just different. And maybe we're exactly what each other needs." Blanca felt tears running down her cheeks. "I thought about adoption too. Many times. But David refused. He said he only wanted his own blood, his own legacy." "David was a fool," Jin-Soo said. "Love isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about waking up every day and choosing to be there for someone. That's what makes a family." "I'm scared," Blanca whispered. "I'm scared of being hurt again. I'm scared of not being enough." Jin-Soo reached up and gently wiped her tears with his thumb. "I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm not asking you to jump into anything before you're ready. I'm just asking if I can be part of your life. If I can take you to dinner, make you laugh, show you that not all men are like David. Will you give me that chance?" Blanca looked into his eyes and saw something she had never seen in David's eyes. Real love. Patient love. Love that didn't demand or expect, but simply offered. Yes, she said softly. Yes, I'd like that. Jinsu smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Then let's start slow. Have dinner with me this Saturday. Not here, not at the restaurant. A real date. Let me show you Chicago the way you deserve to see it. Okay, Blanca said, smiling through her tears. It's a date. Jinsu pulled her into a gentle hug, and Blanca rested her head against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong. For the first time since David had destroyed her world, she felt hope. Real, genuine hope for the future. That night after Jinsu left, Blanca sat by her window looking out at the street below. The trees were blooming with spring flowers. The world was coming back to life after a long, cold winter. And so was she. Saturday arrived and Blanca stood in front of her closet, trying to decide what to wear. It had been so long since she went on a real date that she felt nervous like a teenager. She finally chose a simple blue dress that her mother had always said brought out her eyes. When Jinsu knocked on her door at 7 o'clock, she took a deep breath before opening it. He stood there holding a single rose, wearing a dark blue suit without a tie. His eyes lit up when he saw her. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you, Blanca said, taking the rose. You look very handsome. Jinsu took her to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Blanca had lived in Chicago her whole life, but had never been. David always said classical music was boring. But sitting in the beautiful concert hall, listening to the orchestra play, Blanca felt moved in a way she couldn't explain. The music seemed to reach inside her chest and touch something deep. During intermission, Jinsu bought her champagne, and they stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights. What do you think? He asked. It's beautiful. The music makes me feel things I don't have words for. That's how you know it's good art, Jinsu said. When it speaks to something beyond words. Their second date was to the Art Institute of Chicago. They walked through rooms filled with paintings and sculptures, stopping whenever something caught their attention. Jinsu told her about Korean art and the symbols that appeared in traditional paintings. Blanca shared what she remembered from her college art history class, surprised that she still remembered so much. They stood in front of a painting of a woman sitting alone by a window. That's how I felt 2 months ago, Blanca said quietly. Alone, looking out at a world I couldn't quite reach. Jinsu took her hand. And now I feel like I'm stepping back into that world. Like I'm becoming part of life again instead of just watching it pass by. Over the next few weeks, Jinsu showed Blanca parts of Chicago she had never experienced. They ate at small family-owned restaurants in different neighborhoods. They walked through parks and along the lakefront. They went to a Korean cultural festival where Blanca tried traditional foods and watched traditional dances. Mrs. Park was there and pulled Blanca aside with a knowing smile. My son is happier than I've seen him in years, she said. You're good for him. He's good for me too, Blanca admitted. I know, Mrs. Park said. I can see it in your eyes. You were so sad when you first came to our restaurant. Now you smile. Now you laugh. That's what love should do. It should make you more yourself, not less. Blanca started spending more time at Harmony House, and through the restaurant, she got to know the Korean community that Jinsu served. She met elderly couples who bowed respectfully to Jinsu when he entered. She saw young mothers who thanked him for helping their families. She watched children run up to him calling Uncle Jean and showing him their school papers. One afternoon, a Korean woman came into the restaurant crying. She spoke rapidly in Korean to Mrs. Park, who called Jinsu immediately. He arrived within 20 minutes and sat with the woman, listening carefully. After she left, Blanca asked what had happened. Her husband owns a grocery store 3 blocks from here. Some gang members have been demanding protection money. When he refused to pay, they vandalized his store last night, Jinsu explained. I'm going to handle it. How? Blanca asked. By visiting these gang members and explaining that Korean businesses in this neighborhood are under my protection. Usually, one conversation is enough. They know my reputation. Is it dangerous? Jinsu smiled and touched her cheek gently. I've been doing this for 10 years. I know how to handle myself. But I appreciate that you're worried about me. That evening, Jinsu called to tell her the situation was resolved. The gang members had agreed to leave the grocery store alone. The owner could operate his business in peace. This is what I do, Jinsu said. I protect people who can't protect themselves. Is that something you can accept about me? Yes, Blanca said without hesitation. Because I've seen how you do it. With honor. With principles. You're not a bully. You stand up to bullies. There's a big difference. 3 months into their relationship, Blanca's divorce became final. The papers arrived in the mail on a Tuesday morning. She looked at them for a long time, then put them in a drawer. That chapter of her life was officially closed. That weekend, Jinsu took her to meet his extended family at a gathering for his cousin's birthday. Blanca was nervous about being accepted, about being the Mexican woman dating the head of a Korean family network. But Jinsu's family welcomed her warmly. His aunts insisted she try every dish at the party. His uncles asked about her family's restaurant. His cousins made her laugh with stories about Jinsu as a serious, responsible child who never got in trouble. He was born 40 years old, one cousin joked. Even as a kid, he was always taking care of everyone else. Blanca watched Jinsu with his family and saw a different side of him. He was relaxed here, laughing more freely, teasing his cousins back. An elderly aunt pulled Blanca aside near the end of the evening. You make him happy, she said in careful English. I see it in his face. For a long time, he carried heavy weight. Always responsible, always serious. With you, he is lighter. That is good. On the drive home, Blanca rested her head on Jinsu's shoulder. Your family is wonderful. They liked you. I could tell. How could you tell? Because my Aunt Misun pulled you aside to talk. She only does that with people she approves of. She's the family elder. Her opinion matters. He kissed the top of her head. Not that I needed her approval. I already knew you were perfect. Blanca laughed. I'm not perfect. Far from it. Perfect for me, Jinsu corrected. That's all that matters. By the time summer arrived, Blanca and Jinsu were inseparable. She had her teaching certification renewed and had started applying for positions at elementary schools. Jinsu supported her completely, helping her practice for interviews and celebrating when she got called back for second rounds. Their relationship had grown from friendship to something deeper, something real, something that made Blanca believe in love again. Not the kind of love she had with David, which was based on what she could provide, but the kind of love that saw her as a whole person, valued her for who she was, and asked nothing except that she be herself. One evening, they sat on her apartment steps watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Jinsu held her hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. I love you, Blanca, he said quietly. I know it might be too soon to say that, but it's true. I love you. Blanca turned to look at him. This man who had found her at her lowest point and helped her build a new life. This man who was patient and kind and honest. This man who didn't care that she couldn't have biological children because he couldn't either. This man who saw her brokenness and called it strength. I love you too, she said. I didn't think I could feel this way again. I thought David broke that part of me. But you've shown me that I wasn't broken. I was just with the wrong person. Jinsu pulled her close and kissed her as the sun set over Chicago, painting their new beginning in shades of gold. June arrived with bright sunshine and warm breezes that made Chicago feel like a completely different city. Blanca woke up early on the morning of her final divorce hearing. She had been separated from David for almost 6 months now, and today would make it official. Jinsu had offered to come with her, and she had accepted gratefully. They met at the courthouse steps at 9 in the morning. Jinsu wore a sharp gray suit and held 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Blanca and kissed her forehead. How are you feeling? Ready, Blanca said. More than ready. I want this part of my life to be completely over. Inside the courthouse, they sat on a wooden bench outside the courtroom, waiting for Blanca's case to be called. David's lawyer arrived, a thin man with glasses who barely acknowledged them. David himself never showed up. He couldn't even be bothered to appear for the end of their 8-year marriage. He's not coming, the lawyer said when the clerk called the case. I have his signed authorization to proceed without him. Blanca felt a flash of anger, then realized she didn't care. David's absence was actually a gift. She didn't have to see his face or hear his voice. She didn't have to pretend to be civil. The hearing took less than 15 minutes. The judge reviewed the settlement agreement, asked Blanca a few questions to make sure she understood and agreed to the terms, and signed the papers. Just like that, 8 years of marriage ended with a signature and a stamp. You're officially divorced, the judge said. Good luck to you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Not Mrs. Patterson anymore. Back to Rodriguez. Back to herself. Blanca and Jean-Sue walked out of the courtroom together. The lawyer had already disappeared, probably rushing to his next case. They walked down the long courthouse hallway toward the exit, their footsteps echoing on the marble floor. When they stepped outside into the summer sunshine, Blanca stopped and closed her eyes, tilting her face toward the sun. She felt lighter, like someone had removed a heavy coat she had been wearing for years. "How do you feel?" Jean-Sue asked. "Free," Blanca said, opening her eyes and smiling at him. "Completely, totally free. That part of my life is over. I can move forward now without anything holding me back." Jean-Sue took both her hands in his. "Then this is the perfect time." "Perfect time for what?" Jean-Sue led her to the courthouse steps and stopped halfway down. From this spot, they could see the Chicago skyline rising above the trees, glass and steel catching the morning light. He turned to face her, still holding her hands. "Blanca, 6 months ago I found you in my restaurant crying over a bowl of soup. You had just lost everything. You were hurt and scared and didn't know what would come next. But even then, even at your lowest point, I saw your strength. I saw your grace. I saw the beautiful person you are inside." Blanca's heart started beating faster. She knew what was coming, but she let him continue. "These past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. Not because of anything we've done or anywhere we've gone, but because of who you are. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make me want to be a better man. You've shown me what real love looks like, and it's nothing like I thought it would be. It's better." Jean-Sue released one of her hands and reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it. Inside was a ring with a single diamond, simple and elegant, catching the sunlight. "I don't want to own you or control you or change you. I don't need you to be anything other than exactly who you are. I just want to walk through life beside you. I want to build a home with you. I want to face whatever comes next together, as partners, as equals, as best friends." He got down on one knee right there on the courthouse steps. "Blanca Rodriguez, will you marry me?" Blanca felt tears streaming down her face, but these were happy tears. Tears of joy. Tears of gratitude. She had come to this courthouse to end one marriage, never expecting to be asked to begin another. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, Jean-Sue Park, I will marry you. I will build a life with you. I will choose you every single day for the rest of my life." Jean-Sue stood up and slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it was made for her hand. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her right there on the courthouse steps where she had just become legally free from David. People walking past smiled at them, some even clapped. When they finally pulled apart, Blanca looked at the ring on her finger, then at Jean-Sue's face. "I can't believe this is real. 6 months ago, I was homeless and heartbroken. Now I'm standing here engaged to the most amazing man I've ever met." "Believe it," Jean-Sue said, wiping her tears with his thumbs. "This is your life now. Our life. And we get to decide what it looks like. No one else. Just us." They sat down on the courthouse steps, Blanca leaning against Jean-Sue's shoulder, both of them looking at the city stretched out before them. "What do you want our life to look like?" Blanca asked. "I want a home filled with laughter and love. I want Sunday dinners with our families. I want to support your teaching career and watch you inspire children the way you inspire me. I want us to adopt children who need a family and give them the love and stability they deserve. I want to grow old with you and look back on a life well lived." Jean-Sue kissed the top of her head. "What do you want?" "Everything you just said," Blanca said. "I want a real partnership where we respect each other and lift each other up. I want to create traditions and build memories. I want to prove that family isn't about blood. It's about choice and commitment and showing up for each other every single day." "Then that's what we'll build," Jean-Sue said. "Starting today." They sat there for a long time, making plans for their future. They decided on a small wedding that would combine both their cultures. They talked about looking for a house together, something with a yard where future children could play. They discussed how they would balance Jean-Sue's business responsibilities with Blanca's teaching career. They dreamed out loud about the family they would create. "My mother is going to cry when we tell her," Jean-Sue said with a smile. Happy tears. "She's been asking me when I was going to propose for the past month." "You told her you were planning this?" "I asked her permission first. It's traditional in Korean culture to get the family's blessing. She gave it immediately and told me not to wait too long because you might realize you're too good for me and leave." Blanca laughed. I'm definitely not too good for you. If anything, it's the other way around. No, Jin-soo said seriously. We're exactly right for each other. We're equals. Partners. That's what makes this work. As they finally stood to leave, Blanca took one last look at the courthouse behind them. She had entered that building as a divorced woman, still carrying the weight of rejection and failure. She was leaving as an engaged woman, light and free and full of hope. Ready to start our next chapter? Jin-soo asked, offering her his hand. Blanca took it without hesitation. More than ready. Let's go home and start planning our wedding. They walked down the rest of the courthouse steps together, hand in hand, the summer sun warm on their faces. Behind them was the end of one story. Ahead of them was the beginning of another. And this time, Blanca knew it would be a story worth telling. 3 months later, on a beautiful September afternoon, Blanca and Jin-soo got married in a small ceremony that brought together 2 families, 2 cultures, and 2 people who had found each other when they needed it most. The wedding took place in a garden venue near the lake. Blanca's mother had insisted on cooking all the Mexican food for the reception. For weeks, she prepared her special recipes, recruiting Blanca's aunts and cousins to help. They made tamales, enchiladas, rice, beans, and 3 different types of mole sauce. The kitchen at Blanca's parents' restaurant became a production center, filled with the smells of chilies, chocolate, and spices. Mrs. Park and the Korean side of the family contributed just as much. They prepared traditional Korean dishes like bulgogi, japchae, kimchi, and dozens of other items that Blanca was still learning the names of. The 2 mothers worked together, communicating through a mix of broken English, hand gestures, and the universal language of women who love to feed people. On the wedding day, Mrs. Park wore a traditional hanbok in beautiful shades of pink and gold. The silk shimmered when she moved, and she looked elegant and regal. Blanca's mother wore a traditional Mexican dress embroidered with bright flowers. The 2 women stood together greeting guests, an unlikely pair who had bonded over their shared love for their children. Blanca wore a simple white dress that her mother had helped her pick out. It wasn't the expensive designer gown she had worn when she married David. This dress cost a fraction of that price, but when Blanca looked at herself in the mirror, she felt more beautiful than she ever had before. Maybe because this time, she was marrying for the right reasons. Jin-soo wore a traditional Korean hanbok for the ceremony, then changed into a Western suit for the reception. When Blanca walked down the aisle on her father's arm, she saw Jin-soo's eyes fill with tears. He didn't try to hide them. He just smiled at her with so much love that Blanca felt her own tears starting. The ceremony was short and sweet. They had written their own vows. Jin-soo promised to honor her, support her dreams, and choose her every day for the rest of his life. Blanca promised to stand beside him, be his partner in all things, and build a family based on love and respect. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, their families cheered in Korean, Spanish, and English. The reception was like nothing Blanca had ever experienced. Korean music played, then Mexican music, then American pop songs. Jin-soo's cousins taught Blanca's cousins traditional Korean dances. Blanca's uncles showed Jin-soo's uncles how to dance cumbia. Children from both families ran around together, playing games that required no shared language, just laughter and energy. At one point, Blanca stood with Jin-soo watching their families mix and mingle. "Look at them," she said. 2 completely different cultures, different languages, different traditions, and they're all just having fun together. "That's what happens when people come together with open hearts," Jin-soo said. "The differences don't matter as much as the love." After the wedding, Blanca and Jin-soo bought a house in a quiet neighborhood near Lake Michigan. It wasn't a mansion like David's house had been. It was a normal 3-bedroom home with a small yard and big windows that let in plenty of light. But it was theirs. They picked out furniture together, painted walls together, planted flowers in the garden together. Every decision was made as a team. Blanca got a job teaching 3rd grade at an elementary school on the north side. She loved being back in the classroom, working with children who were eager to learn. Jin-soo would ask about her day every evening, and she would tell him stories about her students, their funny comments, their breakthroughs, their struggles. "You were meant to be a teacher," Jin-soo told her one evening as she graded papers at their kitchen table. "I can see how much you love it." "I forgot how much I loved it," Blanca admitted. "I gave it up so easily for David. I'll never do that again. Never give up what makes me who I am for someone else. And I'll never ask you to," Jinsu promised. They had been married for almost a year when they started seriously discussing adoption. Both of them wanted children, and both of them knew those children would come through adoption, not biology. They attended information sessions, completed home studies, and went through background checks. The process was long and sometimes frustrating, but they supported each other through it. Their social worker was a kind woman named Patricia who had been doing adoptions for 20 years. "What age range are you open to?" she asked during one of their meetings. "We're flexible," Jinsu said. "We know that older children are harder to place, and we're open to that." "What about siblings?" Patricia asked. "Would you consider adopting siblings who need to stay together?" Blanca and Jinsu looked at each other. They had only planned on one child at first, but the idea of keeping siblings together touched something in both of them. "Yes," Blanca said. "We would definitely consider siblings." 2 months later, Patricia called them about a 6-year-old boy named Daniel. He had been in foster care for 3 years after his parents died in a car accident. He was a quiet, serious child who loved to read and draw. He struggled to trust adults because he had been moved between foster homes 4 times. "There's something else," Patricia said carefully. "Daniel has a younger sister, Grace. She's 4 years old. They were separated when they first entered the system because the foster family that took Daniel couldn't handle 2 children. Daniel asks about her at every visit. He draws pictures of her. He hasn't seen her in over a year." Blanca felt her heart break. They separated them. They took a little boy's sister away from him. "It happens more often than it should," Patricia said sadly. "The system is overwhelmed. But if you were willing to take both children, we could reunite them. It would take some time to arrange, but we could make it happen." Blanca looked at Jinsu. They had talked about starting with 1 child. Their house only had 3 bedrooms. They were first-time parents with no experience. Taking 2 children at once would be harder. But Blanca thought about Daniel, 6 years old, and missing his little sister. She thought about Grace, only 4 years old and separated from the only family she had left. She thought about the kind of love she wanted to build in her home. "We'll take them both," she said. "We'll do whatever it takes to keep them together." Jinsu squeezed her hand. "Both of them. We'll make it work." The process took 4 months. There were meetings, evaluations, visits, and endless paperwork. But finally, on a cold January day, Blanca and Jinsu stood in a conference room at the Department of Children and Family Services waiting to meet their children. Daniel came in first, holding a social worker's hand. He was small for 6, with dark hair and big brown eyes that looked too old for his face. He stared at Blanca and Jinsu without speaking. "Daniel," Patricia said gently, "these are Mr. and Mrs. Park. They want to be your parents. And they have a surprise for you." The door opened again, and another social worker came in holding the hand of a tiny girl with pigtails and the same brown eyes as Daniel. When Daniel saw her, his whole face changed. The careful, guarded expression disappeared, replaced by pure joy. "Grace," he shouted, running to his sister. "Danny," Grace cried, throwing her arms around her brother's neck. Both children started crying, holding each other like they would never let go. Blanca watched them with tears streaming down her own face. Jinsu had his arm around her, and she could feel him shaking with emotion. "We're going to stay together?" Daniel asked, looking up at Patricia with hope and fear mixed in his eyes. "Yes," Patricia said, smiling. "Mr. and Mrs. Park want to adopt both of you. You'll be brother and sister in the same home. You'll never be separated again." Daniel looked at Blanca and Jinsu for a long moment. "Promise?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Blanca knelt down so she was at eye level with both children. "We promise. You're going to be our family now. Both of you. Together. Always." Grace, who was too young to fully understand everything happening, looked at her brother. "We can stay together, Danny?" "Yeah," Daniel said, fresh tears rolling down his cheeks. "We get to stay together." That day, Blanca and Jinsu left the building as parents. They took Daniel and Grace out for ice cream, even though it was freezing outside. They went to a toy store and let each child pick out one toy. They brought them to their new home and showed them the bedroom they would share until they could add on to the house. That night, after both children were finally asleep, Blanca and Jinsu sat together on their couch, exhausted and overwhelmed and happier than they had ever been. "We're parents," Blanca whispered. "We're parents," Jinsu repeated, kissing her forehead. "And we're going to be good at this." "I hope so. I'm terrified." "Me too. But we'll figure it out together." That's what we do. 2 years passed. Daniel was now 8 years old and Grace was 6. They had legally become Daniel and Grace Park, though Daniel still sometimes signed his schoolwork with his birth last name, holding on to that piece of his biological parents. Blanca and Jean-Sue understood and never pushed him. Family therapists said it was normal, healthy even, for adopted children to honor both their past and their present. Life had settled into a comfortable routine. Blanca taught during the day while Jean-Sue handled his business. After school, the kids went to Mrs. Park's restaurant where she fed them snacks and helped with homework until Blanca or Jean-Sue picked them up. Weekends were for family time, parks, museums, and the simple joy of being together. On a Saturday afternoon in late summer, Blanca took the kids back to school shopping at a mall in the suburbs. Daniel needed new shoes because he had grown 2 inches over the summer. Grace wanted a pink backpack she had seen advertised on television. Jean-Sue had meetings all morning, but promised to meet them for lunch. They were in the children's clothing section when Grace spotted the backpack display. Mom, there it is. The pink one I told you about." Blanca smiled at how easily Mom came from Grace's mouth now. It had taken Daniel almost 6 months before he felt comfortable calling her that. "Go pick it out and bring it here so I can see it." The kids ran off toward the backpacks while Blanca looked at school uniforms. She was comparing prices when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Blanca." She turned around and felt her stomach drop. David stood 3 feet away, looking older than she remembered. His hair was thinner, and he had gained weight around his middle. Next to him stood a young woman, probably in her mid-20s, with blonde hair and a very pregnant belly. She looked about ready to give birth any day. "David," Blanca said, her voice steady. "Hello. I didn't expect to see you here," David said awkwardly. He gestured to the pregnant woman. "This is my wife, Jennifer." "Nice to meet you," Blanca said politely to Jennifer, who smiled nervously. "Congratulations on the baby." "Thank you," Jennifer said softly. She seemed uncomfortable, probably because David had told her about his first wife. David noticed the wedding ring on Blanca's finger. His eyes narrowed. "You remarried?" "I did. 2 years ago." "To who?" The question came out sharper than probably intended, with an edge of jealousy. Before Blanca could answer, she heard Grace's voice ringing through the store. Mom, Daniel says this backpack is too expensive, but you said I could pick the one I wanted." Both children came running toward her, Grace holding the pink backpack and Daniel following with a more practical blue one. They stopped when they saw Blanca talking to strangers. "Sorry, Mom," Daniel said, suddenly shy. "We didn't mean to interrupt." "It's okay, sweetie," Blanca said, putting her arm around him. She saw David's face go pale as he stared at the children, calling her mom. "You have kids," David stammered. "But you can't. How did you?" "We adopted," Blanca said simply. "Daniel and Grace needed a family, and we needed them. It worked out perfectly." Grace, who was friendly with everyone, smiled at David and Jennifer. "Hi, I'm Grace and I'm 6 years old. This is my brother Daniel. He's 8. Are you friends of my mom?" "Not exactly," Blanca said before David could respond. Jean-Sue appeared from behind them, carrying shopping bags from the shoe store. He immediately noticed the tension and moved to Blanca's side, putting a protective arm around her waist. He was dressed casually in jeans and a black shirt, but he still had that commanding presence that made people notice him. "Everything okay?" Jean-Sue asked, looking at David with an expression that was polite but unmistakably protective. "Jean-Sue, this is David, my ex-husband," Blanca said. "And his wife, Jennifer." "David, this is my husband, Jean-Sue Park." Unmistakably protective. "Jean-Sue, this is David, my ex-husband," Blanca said. "And his wife, Jennifer." "David, this is my husband, Jean-Sue Park." David's face went from pale to completely white. He clearly recognized the Park name. Anyone connected to Chicago business knew who Jean-Sue Park was. His hand shook slightly as he extended it for a handshake. "Park," David said. "As in the Park family?" "That's right," Jean-Sue said, shaking David's hand with a grip that was firm but just short of painful. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I've heard a lot about you, David. I have to thank you for being foolish enough to let Blanca go. Your loss was the greatest gain of my life." Jennifer looked confused, glancing between her husband and this situation she didn't understand. David's face flushed red with embarrassment and anger. "You married him?" David said to Blanca, unable to hide his shock. "But and you have kids now?" We have two beautiful children, Blanca said calmly. We adopted them so they could stay together as siblings. Turns out there are many ways to build a family when you're with someone who actually values love over biology. The words hit their mark. David flinched. Jennifer's hand went to her pregnant belly, and she looked at her husband with new understanding. She was clearly starting to piece together that David had left his first wife because she couldn't have children. Grace, show me that backpack, Jean-Sue said, changing the subject smoothly. Is this the one you wanted? Yes. Isn't it pretty? Grace showed him enthusiastically. It's perfect. Daniel, did you find shoes that fit? Yes, sir, Daniel said. He still called Jean-Sue sir sometimes, a formality that Jean-Sue never pushed him to drop. They had my size. Good. Then I think we have everything we need. Jean-Sue looked at David and Jennifer with a polite smile that was clearly a dismissal. It was interesting meeting you both. Jennifer, good luck with the baby. He guided Blanca and the children toward the checkout, his hand never leaving Blanca's waist. As they walked away, Blanca heard Jennifer ask David in a quiet voice, "You left her because she couldn't have babies?" Blanca didn't hear David's response, and she didn't care. That part of her life was so far behind her that it felt like it had happened to a different person. They were halfway to the registers when Daniel looked up at Jean-Sue. Was that man mean to Mom before? Jean-Sue and Blanca exchanged glances. They had always been honest with the kids, age-appropriate but truthful. Yes, Jean-Sue said. He was. He didn't treat your mom the way she deserved to be treated. Why? Grace asked, holding Blanca's hand tighter. Because some people don't know how to appreciate what they have, Blanca explained. But that's okay. Sometimes things have to end so better things can begin. Daniel thought about this seriously. I'm glad he was mean to you. Daniel, Blanca said, surprised. I'm not glad he was mean, Daniel clarified quickly. That was wrong. But if he hadn't been, you wouldn't have married Dad, and then you wouldn't have adopted us. So something good came from something bad. Jean-Sue stopped walking and knelt down to look Daniel in the eyes. You're absolutely right. That's a very wise way to look at it. Your mom went through something hard, but it led her to me, and it led us both to you and Grace. Sometimes life works in strange ways. Like a puzzle, Grace said. All the pieces have to go in the right spots, or the picture doesn't work. Exactly like a puzzle, Blanca said, kissing the top of Grace's head. And our family is the complete picture. They paid for their purchases and left them all together, a complete family unit. As they loaded shopping bags into Jean-Sue's car, Blanca looked at her husband and children and felt overwhelming gratitude. Not just for what she had now, but for everything that had led her to this moment, even the painful parts. Ice cream, Jean-Sue suggested. I think we've earned it after all this shopping. Yes, both kids cheered. As they drove toward their favorite ice cream shop, Grace singing in the back seat and Daniel reading a book, Jean-Sue reached over and took Blanca's hand. You okay? He asked quietly. More than okay, Blanca said honestly. Seeing David just reminded me how far I've come. How different my life is now. How much better. He looked miserable, Jean-Sue observed. Maybe. But that's not my concern anymore. I hope he and Jennifer are happy. I hope their baby is healthy. I genuinely wish them well, because their life has nothing to do with mine anymore. Jean-Sue brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. That's growth. That's healing. I'm proud of you. From the back seat, Daniel asked, Dad, can I get chocolate ice cream with gummy bears on top? You can get whatever you want, Jean-Sue called back. It's a celebration day. What are we celebrating? Grace asked. Blanca turned to look at her children in the back seat. We're celebrating family. We're celebrating being together. We're celebrating love. Can we celebrate like this every weekend? Grace asked hopefully. Everyone laughed. And as they pulled into the parking lot of the ice cream shop, Blanca realized that this, right here, was everything she had ever wanted. Not the big house or the expensive cars or the perfect image. Just real love, real family, real happiness. And it was more than enough. It was everything. 6 months after the encounter at the mall, Blanca's life had settled into a beautiful rhythm. It was a Sunday evening, and their house was filled with the sounds and smells of family dinner. This had become their tradition. Every Sunday, both families gathered together to share a meal and catch up on the week. In the kitchen, Blanca's mother was making her famous pozole while Mrs. Park prepared kimchi fried rice. The two women worked side by side, talking and laughing, their friendship growing stronger with each passing month. Blanca's father sat in the living room with Jinsu's uncle, watching a baseball game and arguing good-naturedly about which team was better. Daniel and Grace played in the backyard with their cousins, their laughter drifting through the open windows. Jinsu stood at the stove helping both mothers, chopping vegetables and stirring pots as directed. Blanca watched him from the doorway, her heart full. This man who ran a powerful organization, who commanded respect throughout Chicago's Korean community, stood in their kitchen taking orders from two elderly women and loving every minute of it. "Stop staring and come help," Jinsu called to her with a smile. Blanca joined them, and soon the kitchen was full of activity, conversation flowing in English, Spanish, and Korean, sometimes all three languages mixing in the same sentence. When the food was ready, they all gathered around the extended dining table that barely fit in their dining room. 12 people crowded together, passing dishes, reaching across each other, talking over one another in the beautiful chaos of family. As Blanca looked around the table, she felt tears prick her eyes. This was family. Not perfect, not quiet, not organized, but real. Built on choice and love and commitment. Daniel sat between Jinsu's cousin and Blanca's nephew, laughing at some joke. Grace was showing Mrs. Park a drawing she had made at school. Her parents were debating politics with Jinsu's aunt. This blending of cultures, generations, and personalities was everything she had dreamed of, but never had with David. After dinner, while the kids played and the adults cleaned up, Blanca stepped outside into the backyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jinsu found her there a few minutes later and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how different my life is now compared to 3 years ago," Blanca said. 3 years ago, I was sitting in that big empty house alone, feeling worthless because I couldn't give David what he wanted. Now look at this." She gestured toward the house where their families gathered. "Look at what we built." "You built it," Jinsu said. "You had the courage to start over. You had the strength to accept help. You had the wisdom to know your worth even when someone tried to convince you that you had none." Blanca turned in his arms to face him. "We built it together. You showed me what real love looks like, what real partnership means. You taught me that my value doesn't come from what I can produce or provide, but from who I am as a person." From the backyard, they heard Grace call out, "Mom, Dad, come play with us." They joined the children, and soon all the adults were in the backyard playing a game that had no clear rules but lots of laughter. As the sun set and the stars came out, Blanca realized something important. Her story, her journey from rejection to joy, held lessons that other people needed to hear. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the kids were asleep, Blanca sat down to write. She had been thinking about sharing her story, maybe in a blog or a book someday. She wanted other people who felt broken or worthless to know that their story wasn't over. She wrote about the first lesson she had learned. Your worth is not determined by what other people think you can provide. David had judged her entire value based on her ability to have children. When she couldn't, he threw her away like she was defective. But she was never broken. She was always whole, always valuable, always worthy of love and respect. Society puts pressure on all of us to meet certain standards, to check certain boxes, to achieve certain things. But real love doesn't work that way. Real love sees the person, not the checklist. The second lesson was that sometimes the worst moment of your life is actually a door opening to your best life. When David threw her out, she thought her world was ending. She couldn't see that she was being freed from a relationship that made her small, so she could find one that helped her grow. We often can't see this when we're in the middle of pain. Loss feels like disaster. But sometimes these moments redirect us towards something better, something we couldn't have reached if we stayed where we were. The third lesson was about accepting help. Blanca's first instinct had been to refuse Jinsu's offer of the apartment. She didn't know him, and she had been taught to be independent. But accepting his help didn't make her weak. It made her wise. There's a difference between being used and being helped. Learning to recognize and accept genuine kindness is strength, not weakness. The fourth lesson was that family is built on love and choice, not just biology. She and Jinsu had created a beautiful family through adoption. Daniel and Grace became their children not through biology, but through love, commitment, and choice. Their family was just as real, just as valuable, just as legitimate as any biological family. The strongest bonds are the ones we choose to build and maintain every single day. The fifth lesson was that the right person will love you exactly as you are. David wanted Blanca to be something she couldn't be, and when she failed his expectations, he discarded her. Jinsu loved Blanca exactly as she was, with all her strengths and limitations. He didn't need her to change or meet some standard. He just needed her to be herself. That's what everyone should wait for in relationships. Not someone who loves who you could become, but someone who loves who you already are. The sixth lesson was that kindness is the greatest strength. Jinsu was powerful and respected, but what made Blanca fall in love with him was his kindness. He saw someone hurting and he helped, expecting nothing in return. That simple act of kindness changed both their lives forever. Real strength isn't being tough or unemotional. Real strength is being kind when you don't have to be, helping when there's nothing in it for you, and treating others with dignity even when the world tells you they don't matter. The final lesson was that your past does not determine your future. Blanca could have let her experience with David define the rest of her life. She could have decided all men were cruel, that she didn't deserve love, that her inability to have biological children made her less valuable. Instead, she healed, remained open to possibilities, and built a completely different future. Whatever has happened in your past, whatever rejections or failures or heartbreaks you've experienced, they don't have to write the story of your future. You get to write that story yourself, one choice at a time. Blanca saved what she had written and closed her laptop. Through the window, she could see Jinsu in the backyard checking on the garden they had planted together. She went outside to join him. "The tomatoes are coming in," Jinsu said, pointing to the plants heavy with red fruit. "Grace is going to be so excited. She's been checking them every day." "She gets that from you," Blanca said. "You're the patient one. I would have given up on this garden weeks ago." "Good things take time," Jinsu said, pulling her close. "Look at us. 3 years ago, we were two broken people who thought we would never have the families we wanted. Now we have everything." "Everything and more," Blanca agreed. They stood together in their backyard, looking at the house where their children slept safely. The house they had chosen together. The home they had built with love and intention and commitment. "Remember what you said to me that first day at the restaurant?" Blanca asked. "You said my life wasn't over, it was just beginning a new chapter." "I remember. You were right. That day was the beginning of everything good in my life now." Jinsu turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "You're home now, Blanca. Really home. Not just in this house, but in this life. In our family. In our love." Blanca smiled, tears of happiness in her eyes. "We're all home. You, me, Daniel, Grace. We found each other, and we built something beautiful together." "Yes, we did," Jinsu said, kissing her forehead. "And this is just the beginning. We have so many more years ahead of us, so many more memories to make." As they walked back into their house, Blanca thought about how far she had traveled from that terrible night when David threw her out. She had gone from broken to whole, from rejected to chosen, from alone to surrounded by love. Her journey proved that sometimes being thrown out is actually being set free. Sometimes losing everything makes room for gaining what really matters. And what really mattered was this: love, family, kindness, and the courage to start over when life knocks you down. If you enjoyed Blanca's story, please hit that subscribe button right now. Tomorrow, we have another powerful story that you won't want to miss. These stories take time and effort to create, and your support through likes, comments, and subscriptions helps us bring you more inspiring content like this. Drop a comment below and tell us what lesson from Blanca's story resonated with you the most. Have you ever had to start over? Have you ever been told you weren't good enough, only to prove them wrong? Share your story with our community. And thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Your engagement, your support, your presence here matters more than you know. Until tomorrow, remember, your past doesn't define your future. Your worth isn't determined by others. And it's never too late to write a new chapter in your story. See you in the next one.